If you were to have a head bust of any economist or thinker, who would you put on your shelf? Some of the people that I really respect, things that I've read so many quotes of Thomas Jefferson that I really, really like. I would also say that, I'm really into Ron Paul. A lot of you may have seen videos of Ron Paul. You don't agree with him. Read his books. Totally different. It's really, really different. You have to give somebody the benefit of the doubt. I'm not a fan of Nouri al-Rubini. I read his book. Why? Because I want to judge him based on his work, not a little 2-minute clip that you see from online. I like Murray Rothbard as well. For those who don't know, he's another Austrian economist. Hayek, I like. Very complicated. Jeffrey Smith, I guess. He talks about genetically modified food. I really have respect for that. Anyone who comes out there and basically speaks the truth. Russell Blaylock as well, the neurosurgeon. Anyone who's willing to speak the truth, knowing that they could be in very big trouble by doing so, but literally just speaking the truth, that's who I respect. Your thoughts on the Middle East, bro? What you think would happen? The Middle East is going to, unfortunately, devolve a little bit. They're going to have some major chaos. At least that's what they're trying to have happen here, those in control. They want to have a disturbance in the Middle East. It's very important to have this disruption, and they can manipulate it. They can control it. They can overthrow governments. They've been doing this for quite some time. They can, when those economies are weakened, they can then get their businesses to come in. Oh, look, you're in dire straits right now. Don't worry, we'll put a pipeline through and we're going to give you money. You're going to make money from this deal. And ultimately, it was their friends who made this happen. That's the way I see it. If there's a dollar collapse or a shutdown of the banks, what happens to our mortgages? Are we still expected to somehow pay? Absolutely. There will be a shutdown of the banks. It's called a bank holiday. And bank holidays have happened many times before, many places around the world. But the bank holiday ultimately leaves people shut out of their money for a short period of time. When the banks reopen, guess what? You have less money, number one, usually, and the currency's been devalued to some degree. Look at what happened with Cyprus with the bail-ins. It could go for there's different things that can happen, essentially. Your debt, though, always going to be there. That's the system of control that they have over us, and I assure you, they're not letting go anytime soon. Which are the safest brokerages, banks to do continue volatility, assuming that there's result in systematic default by 2018? Thank you for your efforts. Okay. So essentially, which bank should you be doing business with? I don't think it really necessarily matters which bank. You shouldn't keep any savings in the bank. That's what's most important. If you have savings, you have GICs, guaranteed type investments, mutual funds with the bank, you're in deep trouble. It doesn't matter which bank you're with as far as I'm concerned. Don't keep your savings in the banking system. Pay off your debts and buy real assets. Recently, you recommended to get out of debt. If it's going to be an inflation, it would just burn the debt to get as much debt as possible. Looks like a good idea. Many people do suggest this. I am not in this camp. Debt is the system of control of the bankers, of the globalist elite, of the technocratic elite, of the technocrats. Whatever name you want to call them, they're in control. They use debt against us. I don't know how they're going to do it, but debt is their system, and they're going to use it against you. You're going to have to pay. I don't know what they're going to do. We don't never know what they're going to do, but they're going to use it against us. Don't be caught in their system. It's just easier to not take a risk. Don't have that fragility in your life. Sleep well at night, knowing that you don't have that you're free from that you can be self-sufficient. Some people live off the grid. They don't have to worry. They need very, very little money to be able to support their lifestyle. I assure you, they're going to be much better off than those who are in maximum amounts of debt. Are you in favor of a cashless society? Absolutely not. I am in favor of having the ability to use credit cards, to use Apple Pay type systems, even though I don't use that because of the fingerprint required, but I'm in favor of that. Sure, why not? Why not have a digital system? At least having it as an option. But getting rid of the cash is the problem. If I want to transact between yourself and me, Well, I don't need a third party to know about that. I just want to give you a piece of paper. You hand me back your piece of paper, and we have an exchange, cash exchange. It should just be between me and you, not a whole database by the NSA. What are the best investment options for Canadians going forward for building wealth? I've already discussed them, and that is real assets. No paper assets at this time. There is a time and place, perhaps. Now's not the time. Why haven't we felt the bad economy in this country? I'm assuming that you're talking about the US. And I don't know, if you're not feeling the bad economy, well, that's really good. I would say good for you. A lot of people that have contacted me would disagree with you. So, it depends on where you live. In fact, if you look at the home prices in Manhattan, they continuously go up. So, the richer people there are doing well, but look at the overall state. It's not well at all. If you have $100,000 in a 401k, what would you do with it? This is me personally, I would in fact sell it right away and buy real assets. I'm not trying to tell you to do that. I'm saying that's what I would do. And sorry, just to go back to that, the reason why I would do that is simply because there's no possible way that can actually benefit you. The 401k, the retirement account, could just be taken tomorrow. Look at the bail-ins and what they promised to do. All G20 nations are signed on to it. When do you expect the petrodollar to die and be replaced by Russia's new pricing on the ruble? I don't agree that will happen. But the petrodollar may in fact be weakened over the years as time goes on. I think it's going to be a slow and steady decay, as I've said before. And I believe that, as I've said, that the SDR type of currency, an international type currency, will back ours. As a person without debt, is it advisable to buy a house at this time? Should I wait another 2-3 years? You know how crazy Toronto housing is. It absolutely is crazy. It absolutely is completely unimaginable that anything could have gotten this bad, but it is. If you want to buy a house, you buy a house, if you have that kind of money, but don't expect necessarily that it can go up forever. It could really go down tomorrow, but that's not why you buy a house. Appreciation is one of the 4 reasons why. I wrote about it in my book, all the different reasons. There's 4. Appreciation is just one of them. If you feel that you can get in at a good deal on real estate, then you should buy it. But don't neglect the other real assets, which I believe are important as well. Great work. Thank you. I've been wanting to enter the stock market for a while, but I wonder what's going to happen if stuff goes down. I'm not talking about value, but about being a stockholder after the collapse, pending the survival of the company during the crisis. So you're basically buying into the stock market knowing it's going to collapse, thinking that when you come up from the stock market, you're going to have all these shares and you will do well. It's a risk because we don't know which corporations will survive the collapse. We don't know what sort of games they'll pull. Is it an insured account? Because the first thing to go in the bail-ins will be uninsured accounts. If you have money in those, and even if they are insured, they're going to be subject to confiscation. That's my concern. Thank you, Brett. Can you address some tips on generating revenue from a website and whether you need to actually create a business to do so? You can get into internet marketing. You can open up a YouTube channel. You can from a website, you can basically, whatever it is that your skill is. So if you're a handyman, if you're a painter, if you draw, if you make funny voices, if you're an actor, if you're whatever it is, you can get online, you can do that. There's even simple websites like Fiverr. You can look up Fiverr and essentially make money through that. Like I said, you can have a blog, you can do Google ads, you can, there's a lot of ways to make money online. The trouble is basically getting people to come your way. These are not necessarily things that I talk about on the channel, but you can search on YouTube. There are many good channels that talk about this kind of stuff. Most of them are just trying to sell you stuff, so you got to watch out. But just take the free information and keep going. Are Russia and China in bed with the NWO like a good cop, bad cop? Yes, absolutely. Not on the surface level, but behind the scenes. I do believe that all countries, all politicians are all being controlled by the same group of people. You can't have a system like this without one level of control beyond it. So there's like the politicians, then there's like, let's say, a Bilderberg type level beyond that. They're controlling and they're influenced by the politicians. They are the politicians. And then you have a higher level, people that we've probably never heard of, or multi-trillion-dollar bankers, this and that, Rothschilds and what have you. Those people control everything. They're the ones who are controlling all of these countries, all the politicians and everyone else. They control the people, the CEOs of Google and Facebook and everything else. Trudeau just sold off half of Canada's remaining gold holdings, and for good reason, because gold has no value according to any of these countries. At a time when premiums are breaking all-time high in Canadian, do you think they're just selling to get some physical into the corrupt manipulated gold market on the US, UK's behalf? Not necessarily. Or are they selling it to support their massive deficit because of all the promises to get them elected? They really feel that gold has no value, so they're selling it off. It's pretty much the way it is. It's simple economics. Do you think they will try to confiscate Canadians' gold? I don't see that as being probable or likely. When the price is forced to be reevaluated on the massive uptrend, they can keep the price subdued for quite some time. I'm not necessarily one to say that gold will necessarily hit 20,000, 50,000, as many do suggest. I think it's a possibility, but I wouldn't bank on that, is all I'm suggesting. But let's just, what I wanted to say is gold and silver are essential to own. What are the best ways to beat a hyperinflation? Get your money out of the system. I'm hearing a lot on different sites the importance of clearing your debts. Exactly. I've gotten into this multiple times in this video. What if the debt is owed to you? Please discuss what the impact is having a debt and applies it's owed to you. Get it back right now. If somebody owes you money, you got to get it back. Do what you can. Get it in installments. Do anything. If it's person doesn't have money but they can trade time instead, perhaps they can do some work for you. Do whatever you have to do. We all know the game of the banksters. Would it be cool to guess how much is needed to keep the system alive? Usually it has to double to get faster and faster. I would say that you guess the next bank bailout amount. Let's play a game. It's going to be crazy very quickly. We're going to see destruction, I do believe. Ultimately, there's going to be a lot of riots. There's going to be failures of certain corporations. What happens first, I don't know. I just say that I see it getting worse before it gets any better. A friend of mine bought the Iraqi dinar and as an investment, he thinks he's going to be a millionaire soon. What do you say about this? He can be an Iraqi millionaire. But ultimately, in the grand scheme of things, I've heard so many people telling me to get into this investment, and I'm just not seeing any real reason to buy any currency. None. If you want to throw some money in as a gamble, go ahead, but I think your money will be better off used on a real asset. The majority of the listeners, why is it so important to have debt paid off prior to remonetizing the currency? Well, they remonetize earnings on a different scale than existing debt. We don't know what's going to happen. Nobody does. But I just feel that I'd rather be certain, knowing I've paid off all my debts. I'm, becoming self-sufficient. Perhaps I'm already self-sufficient. That, to me, seems like a much more wise, steady, and sound idea. What do you think of Warren Buffett's recent assessment of the U.S. economy? The article is published by the AP. I believe he said that everything is just fine, if I'm not mistaken. And as usual, disagreeing with him in that case. For him, it's fine. I mean, he's a multi-billionaire. He owns corporations. He owns real assets. He doesn't have to worry. So for him, everything's fine. I want to buy silver but don't have the cash. I do, however, have credit cards. Does it make sense to buy some precious metals with one of those? Absolutely not. I hear some analysts like Bix are saying debts will be erased after the collapse. If that's the case, won't it be like free silver? That's what many suggest. If Bix, wants to pay off everyone's debt after the collapse, if they happen to be stuck with it, then, he can make that judgment himself. He can come out and suggest that. I'm not saying that at all. I don't know where you get that idea. Where have we seen that before in history being a certainty when we aren't facing something that we have faced before? Sure, to some degree, we've had banking collapses, we have everything else, but the creations that we have faced in this system have never been seen before